The alarm screamed through the monitoring station, and Krenva jumped from his seat as the display panels flashed red across every screen in the control room. Young Kelvin's sensor analyst had worked at Border Station 73 for 2 cycles, and nothing unusual had ever happened during his shifts until now. High Commander Vexter. "We have multiple contacts entering our sensor range," Krenva called out. His voice shaking slightly. Vex strode across the command center, his tall frame casting shadows over the nervous junior officers. And he had commanded Kelvin forces for 30 years without facing a genuine threat. "How many contacts?" Vexter asked, his tone suggesting this would be another false alarm or merchant convoy that had strayed off course. "Sir, the computer is still counting," Krenva replied, his hands moving quickly across the holographic interface as numbers continued climbing on his screen. The High Commander leaned forward, watching as the count reached 100 vessels, then 200, then kept rising without stopping. "This cannot be accurate," Vexter said, though his confident tone had shifted slightly. "Run a full diagnostic on the sensor array." Krenva initiated the diagnostic sequence while keeping his primary display active, and the system confirmed all sensors were functioning within normal parameters. "Sensors are operating correctly." "High Commander," Krenva reported, "the contacts are real, and they are moving in precise formation toward Kelvin space." Vexter activated his personal command terminal and pulled up the tactical display that showed the entire border region. And what he saw made his secondary heart beat faster. Hundreds of energy signatures filled the screen, arranged in a mathematical pattern that spoke of advanced military coordination. And the fleet was moving at steady velocity directly toward the Empire's outer territories. "Identify them," Vexter ordered. "Which species would dare approach our borders with a battle fleet?" The question hung in the air because every neighboring civilization knew better than to challenge Kelvin's superiority, and the Empire had crushed the last species that attempted aggression. 3 centuries Aga Krenva worked frantically at his station, comparing the energy signatures against the Imperial database that contained information on every known starship design in the galaxy. "Sir, I cannot find a match," Krenva said after several minutes of searching. "The power signatures do not correspond to any registered vessel type." "Unknown vessels?" Vexter's voice carried disbelief. "The Empire has cataloged every starfaring species for 1,000 years. So check again." The analyst ran the comparison 3 more times with the same result, and he expanded his search to include primitive species that had recently achieved faster-than-light capability. "High Commander, I have a possible identification," Krenva said carefully. "The trajectory originates from a region of space claimed by a species called humans." Vexter's expression shifted from concern to confusion, then to something approaching amusement. "Humans?" he repeated, accessing the intelligence files on his terminal. "The primitives who barely achieved warp drive 3 decades ago?" According to Imperial records, humanity was a young species confined to a single star system until recently, and their exploration efforts consisted of fewer than 20 small vessels making cautious journeys to nearby stars. The idea that humans could field a fleet of this magnitude seemed absurd. Yet the sensor data did not lie. "Transmit standard diplomatic protocols," Vexter commanded. "Demand immediate identification and state of purpose." The communications officer sent the message in Kelvin Imperial Standard. The language all civilized species were required to learn under penalty of sanctions. The response came quickly, but it was not what anyone expected. "Sir, we are receiving an automated reply," the communications officer reported. "The message is in an unknown language with mathematical encryption." Vexter felt irritation building because whoever commanded that fleet was ignoring proper protocols. And ignorance of Imperial law was no excuse. "Dispatch a decoder team," Vexter ordered. "I want to know what they are saying." while the linguistic specialists worked on the transmission. Vexter studied the tactical situation with growing unease. The formation approaching Kelvin space showed sophistication that contradicted everything the Empire knew about human capabilities. And each vessel maintained perfect spacing while adjusting course in perfect synchronization. Analysis. Vexter demanded from his tactical officer, "High Commander, the formation suggests military doctrine." The officer replied, "The spacing allows for mutual defensive coverage while maintaining offensive flexibility. And this is not the arrangement of explorers or merchants." Vexter pulled up surveillance reports from intelligence operatives who had observed human activities over the past 3 decades. The reports described a cautious species that sent small science vessels to study star systems, avoided contact with other civilizations, and seemed content to remain in their corner of the galaxy. Nothing in those reports explained the Armada now approaching Imperial territory. Could they have acquired these ships from another power? Vexter wondered aloud. His strategic advisor, Merkin, shook her head. No species would sell military vessels in these quantities to an unknown civilization, and our intelligence networks would have detected such a transaction. And how? Vexter's frustration grew. 3 decades ago, they had chemical rockets, and now they command hundreds of warp-capable warships? The question had no satisfactory answer, and the fleet continued its steady approach toward the border. "Sir, the decoder team has partially translated their automated response," the communications officer announced. "Display it." Vexter commanded. The translation appeared on the main view screen. And while some words remained unclear, the message was simple enough. United Earth Space Forces conducting authorized operations in designated zone. Peaceful intentions maintained. Detailed communications following. United Earth Space Forces. Vexter read the phrase slowly. They have named their military organization. That single detail carried implications because species typically did not name their armed forces unless they expected to use them regularly. "High Commander, visual confirmation is now possible," Krenva announced. Long-range optical sensors have acquired images. The main display shifted to show the approaching fleet, and the command center fell silent. Hundreds of vessels stretched across the view screen in perfect formation, and each ship bore identical markings. A blue world against black space with strange symbols that must represent human writing. The ships themselves appeared sleek and purposeful, without the elaborate decorations common to older civilizations, and their design suggested function over aesthetics. "Enhance the lead vessel." Vexter ordered the image zoom to show a large ship at the formation center, and painted on its hull in white letters were the words UES Valiant. "They have a flagship," Merkin observed quietly. "This is a proper military fleet." Vexter stared at the display, his mind racing through calculations and scenarios. If he ordered border forces to intercept and the humans proved hostile, the Empire could face a war with an opponent of unknown strength. If he retreated without confronting them, he would appear weak before a species the Empire had dismissed as insignificant. If he attempted diplomacy, he might reveal uncertainty that these humans could exploit. Order all border fleets to battle stations, Vexter decided. Position them to intercept if the humans cross into Imperial territory. Officers rushed to implement the command, and across 36 star systems, Kelvin warships powered weapons and formed defensive lines. "Send a priority alert to Imperial Command," Vexter added. "Inform them that an unknown human fleet approaches our borders in force, and request instructions." As the message transmitted toward the Empire's capital world, Vexter continued studying the human formation. The ships maintained their course without deviation, neither accelerating toward confrontation nor slowing to avoid it. And their confidence suggested they knew exactly what response they would provoke. "High Commander, What are your orders if they cross the border? The tactical officer Asket Vexthar considered the question carefully, because his next decision could determine whether the Kelvin Empire faced peace or war with a species they had completely underestimated. We wait, he finally said, and we watch. Ambassador Cormac had served the Kelvin Empire for 40 years, negotiating treaties and alliances across dozens of star systems. But he had never approached a mission with more uncertainty than this one. His diplomatic vessel, unarmed and broadcasting peace signals on all frequencies, moved slowly toward the human fleet that had stopped just outside Kelvin territorial space. Ambassador, we are receiving acknowledgement from the human flagship, his pilot announced. They are granting permission to dock. Cormac adjusted his formal robes and reviewed what little information existed about human culture. Though the intelligence files were frustratingly incomplete, humans had avoided most contact with other species during their brief time in space, sending only automated probes and scientific missions that fled whenever other ships approached. Now, they commanded a fleet that made even experienced Kelvin officers nervous. And Cormac needed to understand how this transformation had occurred. His vessel approached the ship identified as UES Horizon, one of many similar-sized vessels forming the fleet's outer defensive shell, as his ship entered the docking bay. Cormac observed through the viewport that the human facility appeared clean and efficiently organized, with crew members moving purposefully between stations. The airlock cycled with smooth precision, and Cormac stepped into a corridor that surprised him with its simplicity. Unlike Kelvin ships decorated with centuries of traditional artwork and battle honors, the human vessel featured plain walls, clear directional markings, and lighting designed for function rather than grandeur. A human female in a dark blue uniform waited at the airlock, her posture straight and her expression neutral but not hostile. Ambassador Cormac, welcome aboard the UES Horizon, she said in perfect Kelvin Imperial Standard. I am Captain Lisa Morgan, commander of this vessel. Cormac concealed his surprise at her fluency. Captain Morgan, I bring greetings from the Kelvin Empire and High Commander Vexthar. Please follow me to the briefing room, Lisa said, gesturing down the corridor. We can speak more comfortably there. As they walked, Cormac noted details that contradicted the Empire's assessment of human capabilities. The crew members they passed wore identical uniforms, but came in various skin tones and facial features, suggesting humanity possessed significant genetic diversity. Crew member moved with purpose and acknowledged their captain with brief gestures of respect, indicating strong discipline and hierarchy. The technology visible in open compartments appeared well-maintained and functional. Though Cormac lacked expertise to judge its sophistication, they entered a small conference room with a table and chairs designed for humanoid physiology, and Lisa gestured for Cormac to sit. Can I offer you refreshment? Lisa asked. We have water and several varieties of juice. Though I am uncertain if Kelvin biology can process human beverages safely, water would be acceptable, Cormac replied. Appreciating the consideration, Lisa poured 2 glasses from a container and sat across from him, her hands folded calmly on the table. Ambassador, I understand your empire has questions about our presence here, Lisa began. I am authorized to conduct preliminary discussions before formal negotiations begin. Cormac sipped the water, finding it pure and cool. Captain Morgan, my government is indeed curious about your fleet, and we were unaware that humanity possessed military forces of this scale. Earth has been building our defensive capabilities for 3 decades, Lisa replied. To a matter of fact, we determined that entering the galactic community required adequate means of protecting our interests. A reasonable position, Cormac agreed carefully. Though the Empire notes that your fleet numbers several hundred vessels, which represents significant resources for a civilization that recently achieved interstellar travel. Lisa smiled slightly. Humanity has always excelled at rapid industrial development when motivated by necessity. The answer revealed nothing concrete. And Cormac tried a different approach. Our intelligence suggests humans maintained fewer than 20 ships as recently as 5 years ago, Cormac said. The sudden appearance of this fleet raises questions about your intentions. Our intentions are peaceful coexistence with all species, Lisa responded. However, we also believe that peace requires strength, and weakness invites aggression. Cormac recognized the philosophy because the Kelvin Empire had operated on similar principles for centuries. Captain, may I ask about your ship's capabilities? Cormac ventured. The Empire naturally wishes to understand the vessels approaching our borders. The Horizon is a standard frigate-class vessel designed for patrol and escort duties, Lisa said. We carry defensive systems appropriate to our role and crew complement of 120 personnel. Again, the answer provided basic facts without revealing operational details. And your flagship, the Valiant? Cormac pressed gently. Admiral Brooks commands the Valiant. And you will meet him during formal negotiations, Lisa replied. I am not authorized to discuss our flagship specifications. Cormac shifted tactics. Captain Morgan, your Kelvin is excellent. And that suggests significant preparation for contact with our empire. Humanity has studied all major galactic languages. Lisa acknowledged. We believe communication is essential to avoiding misunderstandings. Yet your fleet transmitted messages in human languages rather than Imperial Standard. Cormac noted. Our automated systems default to Earth languages. But all command personnel speak multiple galactic dialects, Lisa explained. We are correcting our communication protocols to prevent confusion. The conversation continued in this manner for an hour, with Cormac probing carefully and Lisa providing answers that satisfied diplomatic courtesy without revealing sensitive information. Finally, Cormac requested permission to tour the ship. Hoping visual observation would provide intelligence, the words concealed. Lisa agreed, but limited the tour to common areas, explaining that security protocols restricted access to operational sections as they walked through crew quarters, mess halls, and recreation spaces. Cormac observed humans engaged in various activities. Some studied technical manuals on portable displays. Others exercised in a gymnasium equipped with unfamiliar machines. And still others socialized over meals. The diversity impressed him because the crew included individuals who appeared to come from different regional populations. Yet they interacted without visible hierarchy based on appearance. Your crew seems unified despite obvious physical differences, Cormac commented. Humanity learned long ago that strength comes from diversity, Lisa replied. We value skills and character over superficial characteristics. They passed a training room where crew members practiced emergency procedures. Their movements coordinated and efficient. How long do your personnel train before assignment to vessels like the Horizon? Cormac asked. Basic training requires 6 months, followed by specialized instruction ranging from 6 months to 2 years depending on role, Lisa answered. All personnel undergo continuous education throughout their careers. The level of investment in training suggested humans took their military seriously, allocating significant time and resources to crew development near the end of the tour. They passed a viewing port that showed other ships in the human fleet maintaining perfect formation. Captain, your fleet demonstrates remarkable coordination, Cormac observed. This suggests extensive practice and communication systems of high quality. We conduct regular exercises, Lisa said simply. Admiral Brooks believes preparation prevents problems. As they returned to the docking bay, Cormac attempted one final probe. Captain Morgan, The Kelvin Empire has maintained peace in this region for centuries, he said. We hope humanity's arrival does not disturb that stability. Lisa met his gaze directly. Her expression serious. Ambassador, humanity does not seek conflict with the Kelvin Empire or any civilization. But we will not accept subordinate status simply because we are new to the galaxy. The statement carried quiet firmness that surprised Cormac, because most species approaching the Empire offered deference or tribute. I will convey your position to my superiors. Cormac replied carefully. Please also convey our desire for mutually beneficial relations, Lisa added. Earth believes cooperation serves all species better than confrontation. As Cormac's vessel departed the horizon and began the journey back to Kelvin space, the ambassador compiled his observations into a detailed report. The humans appeared confident without arrogance, prepared without aggression, and organized to a degree that suggested decades of planning. Their technology seemed adequate, though not necessarily superior to Kelvin systems. But their crew quality and discipline matched Imperial standards. Most concerning was their attitude of equality rather than supplication, indicating they viewed themselves as peers to establish power. Cormac transmitted his report to High Commander Vexter with a simple conclusion. Humanity represented an unknown factor that the Empire could neither dismiss nor easily intimidate. Question of how to proceed now rested with leaders who must choose between accepting a new power or attempting to suppress it before humans became even stronger as his ship crossed back into Kelvin territory. Cormac looked at the distant stars and wondered if the galaxy was about to change in ways no one had anticipated. Emperor Zalkron sat upon the throne that his ancestors had occupied for 40 generations, reading Ambassador Cormac's report with growing frustration. Ornate council chamber filled with advisors and military commanders who waited silently for their emperor to speak. And the tension in the room reflected the uncertainty of the situation. High Commander Vexter, explain to me how a primitive species built a fleet that concerns our most experienced diplomat. Zalkron demanded. Vexter stepped forward, his military decorations glinting in the chamber's ceremonial lighting. Your Majesty, our intelligence clearly failed to track human activities accurately. That much is obvious, Zalkron replied sharply. What I require is an assessment of their actual capabilities and recommendations for response. Strategic Advisor Merkin activated a holographic display that showed the human fleet's formation. Your Majesty, we have analyzed sensor data and Ambassador Cormac's observations, and the humans appear to possess legitimate military capability. Appear to possess? Zalkron repeated. Either they have strength or they do not. The uncertainty is intentional. Your Majesty, Merkin explained. The humans reveal just enough to demonstrate competence while concealing details that will allow accurate assessment. Zalkron stood and walked to the holographic display, studying the formation with the eye of someone who had commanded armies before ascending to the throne. They position their ships for mutual support, he observed. This suggests they understand tactical principles, and the spacing allows defensive coverage without sacrificing offensive flexibility. Precisely. Your Majesty, Vexter confirmed. Their formation is textbook doctrine for fleet operations. Whose textbook? Zalkron asked sharply. We dismissed them as primitives 3 decades ago. So who taught them military science? The question hung unanswered because the intelligence services had no record of humans receiving training from any established power. Your Majesty, I believe they taught themselves, Merkin said carefully. Humans have a documented history of rapid technological advancement, and they may have studied our own tactics through observation. Zalkron returned to his throne, his mind working through political calculations that extended beyond simple military strength. If I order our fleets to attack and we destroy them easily, the galaxy sees the Empire crushing a weak opponent, he said, thinking aloud. This damages our reputation as a civilization that values strength, but practices justice. If we attack and the battle is difficult, we reveal that humans are genuinely formidable, Vexter added, understanding his emperor's reasoning. Other species may question why we attacked rather than negotiated. And if we attack and lose, Zalkron continued grimly, the Empire's dominance ends, and every species we have suppressed will see opportunity in our weakness. The council chamber remained silent, as the Emperor considered options that all carried risks. What if we simply allow them to pass through our territory? A junior advisor suggested hesitantly. Unacceptable, Zalkron stated firmly. Permitting armed vessels to transit Imperial space without challenge sets a precedent that invites future violations. Then we must negotiate, Merkin concluded. But from what position? That question defined the Empire's dilemma, because negotiating as equals with a species they had previously dismissed would signal a fundamental shift in galactic power dynamics. Meanwhile, aboard the U.S. Valiant, Admiral Daniel Brooks convened his own council in the flagship's command center. The Admiral was 53 years old with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen Earth's transformation from isolated world to emerging power. Status report, Brooks requested. Settling into his command chair, all vessels maintain formation at station keeping, Commander Rachel Santos reported. Kelvin ships have taken defensive positions along their border, but they have not approached or taken hostile action. Communications. Brooks asked Lieutenant Brandon Cole consulted his display. We continue receiving diplomatic queries and demands for detailed identification. But I am following your instructions to provide only standard protocols. Brooks nodded, pleased that his officers executed the careful strategy they had planned for months. Strategic assessment. Brooks addressed his intelligence officer. Captain Nicole Taylor and Cole stood and activated a tactical display showing both fleets. Admiral, the Kelvin Empire has positioned 3 battle groups totaling 96 warships along the border. And this represents significant force, but not their full military capability. They are testing us, Brooks concluded. Showing strength without committing to confrontation. Exactly, sir, Nicole agreed. Emperor Zalkron is reportedly a shrewd leader who avoids unnecessary conflicts. And he is trying to determine if we are a genuine threat or an elaborate bluff. Brooks smiled slightly because the Kelvin Emperor was asking the right question. Even if he could not know the answer, are we bluffing, Captain Taylor? Brooks asked, though he knew her answer. No, sir, Nicole replied confidently. This fleet represents genuine capability, and while it is not Earth's entire military force, it is substantial enough to accomplish our objectives. The statement reflected years of preparation that began when humanity first achieved faster-than-light travel and encountered evidence of a crowded, competitive galaxy. Brooks had been a young officer then, commanding one of Earth's first exploration vessels, and he remembered the moment when long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures from distant civilizations. I want everyone to understand our situation, Brooks said, addressing his senior officers. We are not here to start a war, but we must establish that humanity cannot be dismissed or dominated. The Kelvin Empire controls hundreds of star systems, Commander Santos noted. Even if we match them ship for ship in this encounter, their total military force exceeds ours significantly. True, Brooks acknowledged, but they do not know that with certainty. And uncertainty is our advantage. He activated his personal display and pulled up the timeline of human preparation. 3 decades ago, Earth's leaders made a crucial decision. Instead of rushing to explore the galaxy with inadequate defenses, they would build strength-first industrial facilities across Earth, and the solar system focused on shipbuilding, using automated construction methods that could produce vessels faster than traditional techniques. Engineering teams studied every alien transmission they could intercept. learning from other species' successes and mistakes. Military doctrine, developed through careful analysis of galactic conflicts that humans observed from a distance. Most importantly, Earth maintained strict communication security, ensuring that other species continued believing humans were weak and scattered. The Kelvins think we appeared suddenly, Brooks said. But we have been preparing for this moment since before most of you joined the service. Sir, what happens if they call our bluff and attack? Lieutenant Cole asked. Then we fight, Brooks replied simply. And we demonstrate that underestimating humanity is a fatal mistake. He stood and walked to the viewport that showed the distant Kelvin border. But I do not believe it will come to that. Because Emperor Zalkron understands something important. What is that, sir? Santos asked. War is expensive and risky, even for empires, Brooks explained. Especially war against an opponent whose capabilities remain unknown. And Zalkron did not build an empire lasting centuries by taking unnecessary gambles. Nicole added context to the Admiral's assessment. Our intelligence suggests the Emperor faces internal political pressures, and several conquered species within the Empire have shown signs of restlessness in recent years. A prolonged conflict with us could destabilize his realm, Brooks concluded. So he needs to resolve this situation without appearing weak, but also without risking military disaster. That gives us leverage. Santos realized. Exactly, Brooks confirmed. We can offer him something valuable, a face-saving diplomatic resolution that transforms a potential enemy into a neutral neighbor, or even an ally. The officers exchanged glances. Understanding their admiral's strategy now, we are not just demonstrating military strength, Nicole said slowly. We are demonstrating political sophistication. Correct, Brooks replied. The Empire must recognize that humanity understands power in all its forms, not just military force. A communications alert interrupted the discussion, and Cole checked his display quickly. Admiral, we are receiving a priority transmission from the Kelvin Empire, Cole announced. Emperor Zalkron requests direct negotiations with our commander. Brooks smiled because the message confirmed his assessment of the situation. Responded Admiral Daniel Brooks of the United Earth Space Forces accepts the Emperor's invitation to negotiate and propose a neutral location for the meeting. As the message transmitted toward Kelvin space, Brooks felt the weight of responsibility that came with representing humanity's interests. At this crucial moment, the next few days would determine whether Earth entered the galactic community as an equal power or faced conflict that could threaten everything humans had built. The neutral station orbited a lifeless moon between Kelvin and human-claimed space, and its ancient structure had hosted countless negotiations over thousands of years. Admiral Daniel Brooks arrived aboard a small diplomatic shuttle with minimal escort, demonstrating confidence that impressed the Kelvin observers monitoring the approach. Emperor Zalkron had come personally rather than sending ambassadors, and this decision signaled that he took the matter seriously. The two leaders met in a simple conference chamber with windows overlooking the barren lunar surface, and their respective advisors waited outside per agreed protocols. Admiral Brooks Zalkron greeted him in accented but clear English. I am told your species values directness, so I will speak plainly. I appreciate that. Your Majesty, Brooks replied in flawless Kelvin, and I will respond with equal honesty. They sat across from each other at a plain table, and Zalkron studied the human with the intensity of someone accustomed to evaluating potential threats and allies. Your fleet appeared without warning and in strength that contradicts all intelligence my empire possessed about humanity. Zalkron began. Explain this transformation. Brooks had prepared for this question, knowing that the truth would serve better than evasion at this critical moment. Your Majesty, 30 years ago, humanity achieved faster than light capability and began exploring nearby star systems, Brooks said. Within the first year of exploration, we encountered evidence of your empire and dozens of other civilizations. You remained hidden, Zalkron noted. Your exploration vessels avoided contact whenever possible. Yes, Brooks confirmed, because we quickly understood that the galaxy was not empty frontier, but rather contested territory controlled by established powers. A wise assessment, Zalkron acknowledged. Many young species make the mistake of assuming space belongs to whoever claims it first. Brooks leaned forward slightly, his expression serious. Your Majesty, humans have a long history on our world, and that history taught us valuable lessons about survival, such as? Zalkron prompted that appearing weak invites aggression, while appearing strong invites respect, Brooks stated. And that preparation prevents problems better than reaction solves them. The Emperor's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. So you spent 3 decades preparing rather than exploring. We did both, Brooks corrected. But we prioritized building capability before announcing our presence. And we studied every species we could observe from a distance. Zalkron gestured toward the window, where both fleets were barely visible as distant points of light. The result is a fleet that concerns even my military commanders. The result is a fleet adequate to ensure Earth's security, Brooks replied carefully. We do not seek to challenge the Kelvin Empire's position, but we will not accept subordinate status. You wish to be treated as equals, Zalkron said flatly. Yes, Brooks confirmed without hesitation. The Emperor stood and walked to the window, his posture revealing contemplation rather than anger. Admiral, do you know how the Kelvin Empire rose to power? Zalkron asked. Your intelligence services are formidable, but I confess our knowledge of Kelvin history is limited, Brooks admitted. 800 years ago, my ancestors were a minor species occupying 3 star systems, Zalkron explained. We were surrounded by larger civilizations that viewed us as insignificant. Brooks listened carefully, understanding that the Emperor was sharing something meaningful. My forebears built strength in secret, much as you have done, Zalkron continued. They unified our people, developed advanced weapons, and trained warriors who valued discipline over individual glory. And then you revealed your capabilities. Brooks guessed. Exactly. Zalkron turned from the window to face Brooks directly. We emerged from obscurity with a fleet that shocked our neighbors, and we negotiated from a position of strength they could not ignore. The parallel was clear, and Brooks recognized that Zalkron was acknowledging the similarity between Kelvin history and humanity's current situation. Your Majesty, I believe our species have more in common than surface differences suggest, Brooks said. Perhaps, Zalkron agreed, returning to his seat, that there is a crucial difference between our situations. What difference? Brooks asked when the Kelvin Empire emerged. We faced fragmented opposition, Zalkron explained. You face an established empire with centuries of military experience and resources vastly exceeding your own. That is true, Brooks acknowledged. Which is why we seek diplomatic resolution rather than military confrontation. Yet you brought a fleet designed to intimidate, Zalkron observed. Designed to ensure we negotiate as equals, Brooks corrected. There is a difference between intimidation and demonstration of capability. Zalkron smiled slightly, appreciating the distinction. You understand political nuance, Admiral, and that is more impressive than your warships. Thank you, Your Majesty, Brooks replied. Humanity learned through bitter experience that strength without wisdom leads to destruction. Tell me about this experience. Zalkron requested Brooks took a moment to organize his thoughts before speaking. For thousands of years, human nations fought countless wars over territory, resources, and ideology. And we developed weapons capable of destroying our entire world. Nuclear weapons, Zalkron said. Having read the intelligence reports, yes, And worse, Brooks confirmed. We stood on the brink of self-annihilation multiple times, and only luck and a few wise leaders prevented catastrophe. How did you survive? Zalkron asked with genuine curiosity. We learned to cooperate, Brooks answered simply. We realized that our differences were trivial compared to our common interests, and we built institutions that allowed peaceful resolution of disputes. The unification required centuries? Zalkron guessed. It required constant effort and occasional setbacks, Brooks admitted. But eventually we created a global government that represented all human populations and protected individual rights. Zalkron absorbed this information. Comparing it to Kelvin history, it had followed a different path. The Kelvin Empire unified through conquest. The Emperor stated, "We absorbed other species and imposed our culture and laws upon them. Different paths can reach similar destinations." Brooks suggested diplomatically, or very different ones. Zalkron countered. Your unified Earth chose cooperation, while my empire chose domination. The admission surprised Brooks, because powerful rulers rarely acknowledge such distinctions. Your Majesty, I do not presume to judge the Kelvin Empire's methods, Brooks said carefully. But I can tell you that humanity will resist domination while embracing cooperation, meaning you will fight if I attempt to subjugate you, Zalkron clarified. Yes, Brooks confirmed. But we would prefer to build mutually beneficial relations. The Emperor studied Brooks silently for a long moment, and the Admiral met his gaze without flinching. Admiral Brooks, you command a fleet of what size? Zalkron asked suddenly. The question was direct and potentially dangerous. But Brooks had already decided that selective honesty would serve better than complete secrecy. The fleet you observe represents approximately 40% of Earth's current military vessels. Brooks answered, We maintain additional forces for system defense and other operations. Zalkron showed no reaction to this revelation, though Brooks knew the Emperor's advisors would calculate the implications immediately. And your construction capacity? Zalkron pressed, classified. Brooks replied, But I can tell you that human industrial methods allow rapid production when necessary. You automated your construction. Zalkron guessed. Using machines to build machines, among other techniques, Brooks confirmed. The Emperor leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. Admiral, I will be direct with you because I believe you value honesty, and my empire faces a decision. I am listening. Your Majesty, Brooks said, I can attempt to destroy your fleet and suppress humanity before you grow stronger. Zalkron stated bluntly, My military commanders believe we would likely succeed. Though victory would be costly, Brooks remained calm despite the threat, waiting for the Emperor to continue. Alternatively, I can recognize humanity as an independent power and establish diplomatic relations, Zalkron went on. This option preserves both our forces and creates potential for cooperation. Those appear to be the primary options. Brooks agreed. There is a third possibility, Zalkron added. I could ignore you and maintain current boundaries without formal recognition. That would leave our relationship undefined and potentially unstable. Brooks observed. Exactly, Zalkron confirmed. So I must choose between war, diplomacy, or uncertainty. Your Majesty, may I offer perspective from humanity's experience? Brooks asked. Please, Zalkron invited. Throughout human history, the greatest empires were those that adapted to changing circumstances, Brooks said. The empires that clung to past glories while the world changed around them eventually collapsed. Zalkron listened intently, recognizing wisdom in the observation. The Kelvin Empire has endured for centuries, Brooks continued. And I believe that endurance came from your ancestors' ability to recognize when circumstances required new approaches. You suggest the Empire must adapt to accommodate humanity. Zalkron said, I suggest that acknowledging reality serves better than denying it. Brooks replied, "Humanity has emerged as a power whether the Empire wishes it or not, and how you respond to that reality will shape the future." The announcement spread across the galaxy through official channels and informal networks, carrying news that shocked species accustomed to Kelvin dominance. Emperor Zal Kron and Admiral Daniel Brooks stood together before assembled representatives from dozens of civilizations. Their joint statement redefining galactic power dynamics. The Kelvin Empire recognizes humanity as an independent sovereign power, Zal Kron declared, his voice carrying the authority of 40 generations of rulers. Earth and its territories shall be acknowledged as equal partners in galactic affairs. Brooks spoke next, his words chosen to balance strength with diplomacy. Humanity accepts the Kelvin Empire's recognition and commits to peaceful coexistence, mutual respect, and open communication on matters affecting both our peoples. The formal language concealed intense negotiations that had occupied 2 days of continuous discussions. But the result satisfied both sides' essential interests. Humanity gained recognition as equals rather than subordinate newcomers, while the Kelvin Empire demonstrated pragmatic leadership by avoiding costly conflict. The agreement included provisions for trade, cultural exchange, and military coordination in areas of common concern. Though each power maintained complete sovereignty over internal affairs across the galaxy, reactions varied as different species processed the implications. Smaller civilizations that had chafed under Kelvin dominance saw humanity's success as proof that the Empire could be negotiated with as equals, and several governments immediately initiated diplomatic overtures to Earth-established powers, observed carefully, reassessing their own positions relative to both the Empire and this emerging human civilization. Some species expressed skepticism that humanity could maintain its position against the Empire's vast resources, predicting eventual subordination through economic or political pressure. Others recognized that the galaxy had fundamentally changed, and old assumptions about power and hierarchy no longer applied aboard the UES Horizon. Captain Lisa Morgan supervised the first joint patrol with Kelvin forces, an arrangement designed to demonstrate cooperation while allowing both militaries to observe each other's capabilities. Kelvin cruiser Sovereign reports ready for patrol departure. Lieutenant Brandon Cole announced from the communications station. Acknowledge their signal and initiate formation, Lisa commanded, watching her tactical display as the human and Kelvin ships aligned their courses. The Kelvin vessel was larger and more heavily armed than the Horizon, but Lisa's crew had trained for coordinated operations with potential allies. They are matching our speed precisely, Commander Rachel Santos observed. Their navigation is excellent, as we expected, Lisa replied. The Kelvin military has centuries of experience, and we should learn from their professionalism. The two ships moved through space in parallel courses, maintaining constant communication as they patrolled the border region that had nearly become a battleground. Weeks earlier on the Kelvin Bridge, Captain Verkin watched the human vessel with grudging respect. His initial skepticism about human capabilities had diminished as he observed their crew's competence and their ship's reliable performance. The humans maintain formation better than some of our allied species, his tactical officer commented. Do not let them hear you say that. Verkin replied with amusement, but you are correct. And they demonstrate discipline unusual for such a young civilization. After completing the patrol route without incident, both captains exchanged formal communications, acknowledging successful cooperation. Lieutenant Karen Wright became the first human officer assigned to a Kelvin vessel as part of the cultural exchange program outlined in the agreement. She arrived aboard the battlecruiser Determination with carefully prepared expectations and thorough briefings on Kelvin military protocols. The Kelvin crew watched her warily, uncertain how to interact with a species they had underestimated so badly. Officer Wright reports for assignment. Karen announced formally to the ship's first officer. A stern Kelvin named Corvus. Your quarters are prepared on Deck 7, Corvus replied stiffly. You will observe operations in the engineering section and provide reports on human technical approaches. Understood, sir, Karen responded, following the Kelvin escort through corridors that reminded her of descriptions from Ambassador Cormac's report. The determination displayed the decorative elements common to Kelvin vessels, with battle honors and traditional artwork covering walls that human ships left plain over the following weeks. Karen worked alongside Kelvin, engineers who initially treated her presence as an unwelcome imposition. She proved herself through quiet competence, solving technical problems and offering insights from human engineering perspectives. One afternoon, when a power coupling failed during routine operations, Karen identified the issue before the Kelvin diagnostics completed their analysis. The feedback loop creates harmonic resonance at this frequency, she explained, showing her calculations to the chief engineer. If we adjust the dampening field by 0.3%, it should stabilize. The engineer, Tekmar, implemented her suggestion, and the system immediately returned to normal operation. How did you identify that so quickly? Tekmar asked, his tone more curious than challenging. Human ships use similar coupling designs, Karen replied. We encountered this problem during early testing and developed solutions. From that moment, the Kelvin crew began treating her as a colleague rather than an observer. And Karen sent regular reports to Admiral Brooks, describing her experiences aboard the UES Valiant. Admiral Brooks reviewed updates from across human-controlled space and newly established diplomatic posts. The fleet had dispersed to regular patrol patterns, though significant forces remained ready for rapid deployment if needed. Captain Nicole Taylor entered his office with her usual efficient manner, carrying a data tablet containing intelligence assessments. Admiral, we are receiving interesting reports from our diplomatic missions, Nicole said, settling into a chair across from his desk. Good news or concerning? Brooks asked. Both, Nicole replied. Several species have approached us expressing interest in establishing relations independent of Kelvin mediation. They see us as a counterbalance to the Empire. Brooks concluded. Exactly, Nicole confirmed. The galaxy is adjusting to a new reality where the Kelvin Empire no longer represents the only significant power. Brooks considered the implications carefully. We need to be cautious about accepting alliances too quickly, and we do not want to appear to be building a coalition against the Empire. Agreed, Nicole said. I recommend establishing diplomatic relations with interested species, while maintaining neutrality on any conflicts between them and the Kelvins. That seems wise, Brooks approved. What about the Kelvin Empire itself? Emperor Zalkron appears to be honoring the agreement fully, Nicole reported. Their military maintains respectful distance. Trade discussions are proceeding positively, and they have even shared some intelligence on hostile species in neighboring regions. Surprising, Brooks admitted. I expected more resistance from their bureaucracy. The Emperor's authority is absolute when he chooses to exercise it, Nicole explained. And our analysis suggests he genuinely believes cooperation serves the Empire's long-term interests. Brooks stood and walked to the viewport that showed Earth's sun as a distant point of light, still visible despite the vast distance. 30 years ago, we looked at that sun and wondered if we were alone in the universe, he said quietly. Now we know we are surrounded by civilizations older and more powerful than ourselves. But we also proved that newcomers can earn respect. Nicole added, we did. Brooks agreed. Though we must remember that respect requires continuous effort, and one mistake could undo everything we have built. He turned from the viewport to face his intelligence officer. Make sure all our commanders understand that we are not invincible. and arrogance destroyed more empires than external enemies ever did. I will emphasize that in all briefings, Nicole promised later that evening. Brooks recorded a message for transmission to Earth. Knowing that his words would reach the billions of humans who had supported this endeavor. To the people of Earth, he began. 3 decades ago, our species stood at a crossroads, and we chose to prepare carefully before revealing ourselves to the galaxy. That patience has been rewarded. Brooks continued. Today, humanity takes its place among the stars, not as conquerors or subjects, but as equals who earned recognition through strength, wisdom, and determination. The road ahead remains uncertain, he acknowledged. We will face challenges from those who resent our rapid rise, and we must work constantly to maintain the respect we have gained. But I have confidence in humanity's future, Brooks stated firmly. We survived thousands of years of internal conflict to build a unified civilization, and we will navigate the complexities of galactic politics with the same resilience. To every human watching this message, remember that our success came from cooperation, preparation, and refusing to accept others' limitations, Brooks said. Carry those principles forward as we build relationships across the stars. He concluded the message and transmitted it toward Earth, imagining the reactions as people learned that their gambit had succeeded. Across human-controlled space, ships continued their patrols. Diplomats engaged in delicate negotiations, and engineers worked on the next generation of vessels.